PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of the PR Connections podcast is brought to you by Classy Communications PR and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and nonprofit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
So welcome to Breaking the Silence, Finding the Courage to be Heard, the podcast where we turn quiet fears into confident voices. And I'm your host, Gail Larson. Now, in our last episode, we talked about why we stay silent. Maybe it's fear or just to protect ourselves or to mask the stories that we carry. So today, we're tackling one of the biggest myths that keep people quiet, the idea that confident speakers are just born that way, I guess. So this episode is called The Myth of the Confident Speaker. Now, have you ever thought, I won't speak until I feel confident? If so, this conversation is definitely for you. So I have with me Calvin Dorsey, who will help us to explore more about our beliefs and about our speaking confidence. Now, Calvin is the president of Dorsey Management Services, and he's trained more than 100,000 people from various countries and cultures from around the world. And Calvin and I also have something in common, as we have both spent time as managers in sales. So Calvin, welcome. Can you tell us a little more about yourself and maybe something that folks don't know about you?
First of all, thank you for this opportunity, Gail. It's my pleasure to be here with you and to be able to communicate to everybody who's listening to and watching the podcast. As far as I'm concerned, something that I often forget, yet it's important to note, is that I skipped the fourth grade, Gail. I went from the third grade to the fifth grade, and that's how I learned that there's a difference perhaps between courage and confidence. They're not synonyms. Because that was a very unique experience for me as a little boy, setting a goal that I didn't intend to pursue. Yet when the opportunity presented itself, I said, okay, bring it on. I studied the materials for the fifth grade, or rather for the fourth grade, during the summer. And by the time I got to the fifth grade, the following year, I was able to skip the fourth grade, begin in the fifth grade, and keep moving. And that was a really good experience for me, Gail.
Wow, that's really interesting because I had no idea about you skipping those grades. And I had a very similar experience. I skipped between the fourth grade and the sixth grade.
Wow.
Because they were doing some reorganization of the district and they needed to move people upwards or backwards or that kind of thing.
Sure.
And that was a little traumatic because here I am. I'm the youngest now, the youngest in the class, right? So speaking up with all these new people and much older than me, it just, wow. Yeah, that's interesting. Very interesting.
This was in my case. It wasn't academics. It was just the maturity level that I had to adjust to.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So knowing that you've been speaking in groups for a long time, do you often hear people say, well, I'm just not confident?
Yes, I do. I hear that all the time, and I take it to heart because who am I or who are we to judge somebody else's feelings? If they feel that they're not confident, accept it for what it is and try to provide insight, because there's a difference between courage and confidence. For example, I might have confidence in my ability to speak, yet lack the courage to speak on certain topics. That's a difference. When I went from the third grade to the fifth grade, and you went from fourth to sixth, we had the confidence that we could do it, and we needed the courage to be able to deal with the peripheral aspects of it, as far as maturity and being the youngest and making new friends. For that reason, I look at them as different, sort of like the chicken and the egg. What came first, the chicken or the egg? What comes first, confidence or courage, or is it courage that sparks confidence?
Oh,
They
absolutely.
work in concert.
Yep, absolutely. And, there's that element of fear in terms of trying to build our confidence that we need to overcome. And one thing that I noticed too in trying to overcome that fear is that when we observe others who are dealing with the same thing,
Mhm.
that also builds our confidence and or courage because like I mentioned with me, and I'm sure it was maybe with you, other people in your grade level, and just along the way you can see they're dealing with the same thing and they deal with it in different ways. Some people shrink back, others, they just push forward. So observing others who are, dealing with the same thing can possibly help.
I found that fear is normal for me. The idea is to not let fear dominate you or hold you back. Instead, try to reframe that fear as far as it being a challenging circumstance that you can overcome. And what happens is when you overcome one obstacle, it seems as though you train your brain to not be as afraid to fail. As my father always told me, he said, son, nothing makes a failure but a try. In other words, to fail, you have to try and keep trying, preparing, you can succeed.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And your father is absolutely right. Failure, people are so afraid of failure, but they don't necessarily think about failure leads to the possibilities of other opportunities. Failure leads to the opportunity for new learning as well. So, yeah, absolutely.
Well,
Go ahead.
I was going to say, you mentioned something earlier about confidence, and something that I'm a very strong believer in and advocate of is the fact that confidence, or let's call it self-efficacy, has a variety of sources. There are at least four, and current research says that there probably are more sources of confidence or self-efficacy. One thing that you mentioned was vicarious experience. In other words, if I see Gail speaking, I say, well, I got lips and I got a throat. I can speak, she can do it, I can do it as well. That's a vicarious experience. Or you and I both skipped a grade, which gave us a lot of confidence. And that's a performance accomplishment, which can transfer in other areas of life. And then, of course, we both, I'm sure, and many people listening and watching have had people to give us encouragement. You get confidence from encouragement or emotional arousal. Those are just four sources of self-efficacy or confidence. And current research says that there could even be more.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And that really brings me to the question regarding borrowed confidence.
Mhm.
When people have mentors and they have people that are advising them in different ways, maybe it's through getting a new job. You typically have a mentor in that position, or even with Toastmasters. When a person starts Toastmasters, they have a mentor. So, what do you think about borrowed confidence?
I don't like it. It's not a good idea to fake the game.
Hmm.
Instead of borrowing confidence, learn from others and prepare to be the best version of yourself. I would imagine that borrowed confidence is a short-term occurrence. And when the going gets tough, if you borrow that confidence, how can you dig deep if that confidence doesn't come from inside you instead of somebody else? you won't have it. Instead of borrowing that confidence, learn from it, be willing to do the work, and make that confidence your own. That's my perspective, Gail.
Well, I like that. I didn't even think about it in that way. Borrowed confidence. When someone shows up with borrowed confidence, like you say, they're not authentic.
Exactly.
And if you're not being your authentic self, then people will recognize that right away.
And not only that, think of it this way. A lot of times when I speak, I know what I want to say. However, sometimes I don't develop the way that I'm going to say it until I get involved in the speech and interact with the audience. If you borrow that confidence, how can you learn the tricks of the trade in terms of being able to let it flow? Because you don't have it inside of you to flow. You got your confidence from somebody else. And my point is, as you repeat your actions, your practice, your points, if you are authentic, you allow your total being to be a part of your presentation, which means you got a whole team working with you to help you to improve.
Absolutely.
I've found that many people can do something good one time. What's the saying? A broken clock is right at least once or twice a day.
Yep, that's
However,
right.
to repeat excellence requires preparation and a willingness to fail, a willingness to get better. Everybody out there, failure is good. Keep going.
That's the truth. That's the truth. And as we go day by day, there's going to be some point in which what we thought we were going to accomplish just goes haywire.
Right.
So
Yes.
accept it. Now, Calvin, you and I are part of the same Toastmasters Club. And very often from week to week, we have guests that come in. They're exploring our Storytellers Club. And when you think about the different levels of speaking ability within our club, did that play a part in the presentation, the training that you did for us a couple of weeks ago, and how you prepared your presentation?
Absolutely.
Tell us a little bit about that.
It's important to tailor your presentation to your audience. In other words, if you're just trying to impress yourself with how much you know, that's not good. That's bad. That's real bad. Instead, look at your audience and make sure that you're communicating in language that they're ready to receive. Should you challenge them? Absolutely. Challenge them where they are rather than where you want them to be. I've found that if you walk with me, I can help you more. Not behind me, not in front of me. Walk with me, and we'll do this together. And that's the point I like to make when I make a presentation. And that's the point that I attempted to make in the presentation that you referred to. Let's walk together. I was vulnerable. I admit it. I'm nervous sometimes. Let's walk together and overcome those fears that we might have. Because if you've had that fear, I probably had it myself.
Yeah, that's so important. And, being on that training with you and with everyone else, I was looking around thinking about that same thing. And everyone, regardless of if they were new members, if they were guests, if they were really experienced speakers, they were all engaged in everything that you were presenting, and they were interactive and participatory. Everyone was. And, the credit I give to you because you did exactly that. You invited them to walk with you. And it's just great advice, even for me. I have some engagements that are coming up, whereas I know that there's going to be a lot of different personalities, but engaging with them in the beginning and finding out where they are, asking their questions about what they want to hear just helps me to be a better trainer, a better presenter, for sure.
Absolutely, Gail. And the best time to answer a question is before it's ever asked. When you prepare your presentation and while you're giving your presentation, there is something that you have to have for everybody. For example, there's some people who want to know statistics and research. Refer to a statistic early on without citing too many, because that's boring and certainly not memorable. However, for those who want to know who is this man and what is he talking about, let them know I'm Calvin Dorsey and this is what I'm talking about. And here's why we're talking about it. Put something in there for everybody that you can determine is in your audience. Feed them.
Yep, that's absolutely right. And you mentioned something about statistics not being memorable. And sometimes when we are speaking, especially in our professional lives, and there's a lot of data involved in statistics, there are ways to make what we're trying to present more memorable. And do you want to address that?
Absolutely. In your introduction of me, you said he's trained more than 100,000 people from around the world. He's trained as many people that can fit into the Las Vegas Allegiant Field.
Gee.
That's another way to say it.
Exactly. Oh, yeah, absolutely. And, you did something today that it didn't surprise me, but it was just memorable for me. And that's the fact that it's contest season in the Toastmasters world.
Mm-hmm.
And then I received the email from you that was actually helping contestants and used, mnemonics, or I don't want to say mnemonics. It was acronyms.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe you could talk a little bit about that, because that was fantastic.
Well, acronyms are important. Rather than cite that research, let's talk about how an individual can develop his or her own acronyms, which help you to remember your speech. Let's say if you want to make 3 points and in your mind you talk about ICE. As a speaker, you want to have an integrity, you want to have competence, and you want to have empathy. ICE. Those are the 3 points that I'm going to make in my speech. Create your own acronym. That's memorable for you. It's a little cheat code. And it's also memorable for your audience because ICE. Now, ICE isn't very popular today in the broader community. And you could maybe even I wouldn't say necessarily make a joke, but you could. If you use ICE, that would get everybody's attention right up front in your speech. However, it's important to be aware of political landmines.
Exactly.
When you make your speech to your audience. I usually avoid all of them. I'm not a joke teller. I avoid jokes. I always say I look funny, which means that's funny enough. I'll do it that way. I maybe move funny. I stay away from the jokes and the political type commentary.
Yep, so true.
And misogynist things as well. That's not good.
Oh, exactly.
I don't want women mad at me. I don't want that. That's not good.
Nope.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, I try to do the same thing. I post a lot on social media about different topics, different things, about quotes from my book and that sort, but I ensure that it's not going to invite confrontation, So
I've seen many of your posts and you do just an outstanding job. I mean, you're everywhere, Gail.
I wouldn't say that, but thank you.
Oh, just about. I looked the other day and you were doing something with USC, which I believe that's where you went to school, and you were doing something there.
Oh, well, that was basically just commenting virtually, but yeah, that's I'm a Trojan alumni. So anytime I could pop in, I'm going to do that.
I got you.
Fight on.
Okay.
So yeah, so I just try to, well, my thing, and this is not about me, it's about you, but I just feel like the more we're visible, the more we're leaving a legacy
Okay.
behind.
Great.
And I remember my mother used to do a lot of public speaking. She was really involved in her sorority. But this was back at a time where everybody didn't have their phones out all the time and people weren't recording all the time.
Right.
And so I was thinking, I missed out on being able to capture these memories and for those to be passed down. So I kind of made it my life's mission that I would bring my mother, Winnie Pearl, who is the title of my latest book, would have an opportunity to have this legacy carried on to not only my children, but my grandchildren. So I'm not just out there just like posting every time, I sneeze, but I'm hoping.
She's proud of you, very proud of you.
Well, thank you. So when going back to confidence, now I had mentioned that both of us have spent some time being sales managers. And we know that in the professional world, and I know that we have a lot of listeners out there who are working and, managing teams as well. There have been times, I know for myself and probably for you, where you had to show up with your team and maybe present some things that are uncomfortable, maybe changes in the company or, changes in, different things that are going along. So I guess my question for you is when you are dealing with uncomfortable situations, does your confidence ever wane, that in terms of how you show up?
No. You have to wear your confidence. It has to be a part of you. And as a manager or a staff person, line employee, change is a part of the mix. It's a part of the job. For example, at one point in my life, as a sales manager of a radio station, the program department decided to change formats without telling anybody in the community. I didn't even know it until I was on the way to work and I turned the radio on and I heard the same song being played over and over and over again. After I got to the office, I started getting these phone calls. Kelvin, what in the blink, blink, blink is going on up there? We're hearing the same song over and over and over. I have spent thousands of dollars to reach an audience, and I can guarantee you, Calvin, I'm not reaching them right now. And everybody was upset. I had to own it. I explained to them that we were changing formats, and this will be going on all day. And I'll make it up to you. Let me get through this day, and I'll call you tomorrow. And you have to make it up to people. You have to label it. Labeling diffuses some of the anger, and you acknowledge it because it's real, and let people know the impact that it has on you and them. They're not happy about it, and you're not happy about it, yet you realize it's your job to fix it and assure them that we're going to get through this. And that's a real situation. It happened to be for real.
Yeah, and what you just described really has a lot to do with maintaining or either developing and then maintaining trust
Yes.
in your team, because they have confidence by what you've done and what you've said. You've given them the confidence to trust you, to believe that things are going to be okay, that change is real, but you can deal with it.
Absolutely. And it worked.
Yep.
The explanation worked, and we worked through it until they did the same thing again.
Well, that's one thing that when we're dealing with change, one of the things that I talk about is the fact that as managers or as leaders or as, part of a household, you always have to do something that's called weaving the whys
Yes.
of critical facts and details. So we could we could stand up there as managers and say, this is what's happening, just deal with it. But, in the back of, everyone's mind is, well, why? Why is this happening? Like you said, why? And we have to be able to, get to the bottom of listening to their concerns.
Absolutely.
And then explaining those whys as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So it makes me think about, change. People are so afraid of change. It makes us, fear failure, like we talked about earlier. And of course, change makes us fear the unknown, And so a lot of times when we go into speaking situations, fear of the unknown plays a part because we don't know how our audience is going to respond.
Yes. And it also depends on your personality. And one aspect that I like to point out is that some people have what we call an internal locus of control, which means that those people feel that whatever the environment is, they'll figure out how to deal with it. There are other people who have an external locus of control, which means that they feel that their environment has a lot to do with what they can achieve. And there might be some truth to that. It's just that with an internal locus of control, you can embrace change more readily. For example, many, many years ago when I started in sales, my favorite aspect of sales was the aspect that most people didn't like, and that's prospecting. I love to prospect because it was exciting to me not knowing who I'd meet on a given day. I'd look forward to meeting all the different characters. And I've met many different types of characters, everybody. I felt that I could deal with whatever came my way. And it helped me with that internal locus of control and embracing change.
Oh, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head about prospecting. For some people who maybe they don't have the confidence or trying to develop the confidence of speaking to people that they haven't spoken before, then they might be intimidated. But, me, even as a salesperson, even moving into management, I looked at prospecting like, I don't know, speed dating. Not that I really.
I got you.
But, it's just like going from one to the next, or, interviewing like what we're doing right now. It's just one of those things where you can learn so much.
I've found that it's important to be results oriented in the tasks that you are performing, the projects that you're undertaking, speaking, or anything that you're doing. Focus on the result. The process is not always going to be picture perfect or the same. However, if you're focused on the results, that mindset will help you get to the finish line. Here's how I learned that. I was in a company that was in the process of eliminating some positions, which means that the manager was selectively riding with salespeople and interviewing us. The word had gotten out that I liked research, and I spent a lot of time early in the morning before going on my sales route doing research, qualitative research. That's always been something I've loved because I enjoy making numbers tell a story. I've always been a storyteller, Gail. The word had gotten out that I was spending a lot of time on the computer doing my research, getting my presentations together. During my time with the station manager, he tried to set me up. He said, Calvin, is it more important what do you like most about sales? Making wonderful presentations? Blah, blah, blah. I said, no, sir. I like making the sale. I like making the money. And he was like, oh, okay. I said, yeah, the bottom line is not how pretty it sounds or how much you know. It's who buys from you. That's why I'm here. The guy's name was Bob. Bob?
Yep.
I blew Bob's mind.
Yep.
Go get the man.
That's being prepared. That's for sure.
Mm-hmm.
And whether you like research and doing all of that in terms of being the best salesperson, you also knew how to appeal to Bob
Yes.
in terms of what he's looking for.
What do you
So,
want to hear? Absolutely.
yeah, what he needed to hear, especially when it comes to sales. And we all know when it comes to sales, the bottom line is
The
the
only
price.
line.
That's right, the only line. Yeah, and the other thing too, you made me think about is the fact that we really have to maintain control of the result or the outcome, but that outcome has got to be realistic. You know, if you are trying to maintain control and your outcome, oh, I'm going to knock this audience dead. They're just going to be singing my praises. That's not a realistic outcome.
That's overconfidence, and it can cause errors. Stay
Absolutely.
grounded, stay humble, and realize you got Pete and repeat. Pete, that's at one time sale. Repeat, that's continual business. I like repeat business. You get that business by being humble, working hard, staying focused, and continually improving your skills and being aware of what the market needs and what the market's looking for.
Absolutely. That is profound. And whether in your professional life or in your personal life, it works for sure. Now, going back to our topic about the myth of the confident speaker, as we are getting closer to our close, what would you say to someone who is waiting to feel confident before they use their voice?
Why wait? The best time to act is right now. Take that first step. I found in many things that I've done up to this point in my life, the hardest part is taking that first step. Take the first step. The water's just fine.
Yep, that's right. And after that first step, then the next step might be just a little easier.
Keep going.
That's right.
And persistence. I cannot tell you the number of times it's been at the end of the day and I hadn't made any sales and I was trying to decide, am I going to make one more call? It's amazing how you can be successful by just making one more call.
That's right.
It builds strength.
Well,
and something else. Little prospects can become big prospects. Many years ago, I had an opportunity to meet a man who owned a little retail store about as big as the room that I'm in. And he had sent out inquiries around the marketplace to meet with salespeople. And he had said, Calvin, you're the only salesperson who's trying to help me. I only got $1,000, $1,500, and you're working with me like I'm a big business person. I said, well, yes, sir, that $1,500 is important. I'm going to make sure that $1,500 works as hard for you as $100,000. This is what I can do for you. Gail, about 5 years later, that guy was the CEO of a huge company.
see, you never know.
And who did he call?
That's right, Calvin.
I handle the business.
That's absolutely right. Everyone is important, even if you don't realize at the time to what extent. Just treat everyone with respect.
Absolutely. Yes.
So, Calvin, I really want to thank you for your candid conversation about confidence. Did you get the alliteration? That's another way to make your speech memorable. But I really want to thank you for being here. I always enjoy being in your company because, I learn so much from you all the time. And to our listeners, if this episode really resonates with you and you think that sometimes your confidence might escape you, just think there's always ways, like Calvin shared, to capture it back. So this has been Breaking the Silence, finding the courage to be heard. And until next time, speak confidently and courageously. Thank you, Calvin.
Thank you.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.